Update. Adoptive mother accused me having an affair with her husband. Original post. A lot of you asked for an update when I first made this post, but at the time I wasn't ready for it and was basically stuck in the same place I had been for years. I still somewhere blamed myself for what happened with adoptive mother, and with the urging and support of my husband, I talked with my therapist about contacting my adoptive father again. She suggested I take small baby steps, so I first called him via Zoom and didn't mention much, only asked about his health and how my adoptive sister was. He asked about me and my family. Over the course of a few Zoom calls, we gradually got to the subject of and her behavior towards me. At first as fuck was vague, calling her insane and that she was just a very vengeful woman, but wouldn't go into detail about her, so I didn't push, as honestly I was scared of the answer myself. I talked with my also during this time, and it was really lovely connecting with her again. 2 weeks earlier, as fuck and I decided to meet up for lunch. This time I don't know what came over me, but I asked him to tell me why felt that way about me. There had to be a reason. Jittery at first, as fuck admitted he felt kind of to blame for her behavior because before I was adopted he had a year-long affair which might caused to have a mental breakdown. They had also been struggling with infertility after and in her head thought she was to blame for his infidelity. As fuck said, he tried to assure her he was the one to blame and they went through couples counseling, but didn't agree with the therapist, saying they were fine, all they needed was another baby in the house. Yes, at first they planned to adopt a baby, but over time thought a same-aged sibling for us was a better choice. My country was going through a crisis and many parents were putting their kids up for adoption, like my mother, and they chose me from a large binder of kids. Had chosen me specifically as I was the same age as fuck and our birthdays were close. I was 10 at the time, and he said would claim she fell in love with me the second she saw me. He said the first time he saw a change when I turned 12. Which was earlier than I thought. She became distant with me and would berate me for the simplest things. Although I do remember this, but I would blame myself at the time, thinking I was a stupid girl always making mistakes. When as fuck confronted her about it, they had a huge fight and she accused him of favoritism, that he was putting me before and cared for me more. Over time and as I grew up more, that then led to her accusing him having feelings for me, as you all know already. I cried a lot that day and it took me some time to come to terms with what as fuck said. I think it helped me a lot to talk here and post my story. Now I know nothing I could have done would have changed the situation, and finally come to terms that I was needlessly put between these two. I would like to thank everyone who gave me encouragement during my first post. Literally years of therapy couldn't help when a few internet strangers did. I'm at a better place with as fuck now, and even back in contact with as. I have reconnected with my family and my mother now lives with me so she can bake me all the cookies me and my sister want so I don't have to steal them. How long before you were adopted was the affair? They adopted a child to help get over an affair, then your turned on you within 2 years. What a horrible person she was. So good to see a happy ending here. Enjoy growing your reconnected relationships with as fuck and as op. As for her troubles are over, and if you can forgive her the hurt and pain she caused you, it will lessen the burden for you. May you be happy and at peace in your life. Jesus, I feel so sorry for you. Both of your parents completely failed you for obvious reasons, but so you're as fuck who knew for years about her abuse towards you and literally did nothing. Please take care of yourself. The other post is deleted. No true villain in this story, just a lot of victims. Wait, you adopted cause you were the same age as your adoptive dad? That's creepy. Or a typo. Almost all mother bad, father good events posted here have father being an absolute dick to mother and then getting to play daddy cool before others. These assholes take away their wives' confidence and self-worth, makes them feel insecure, and are forgiven by everyone because he is nice. Your adoptive mother should have kicked him out and both your lives would have been better. Is it possible to outgrow your spouse? I'm 34 female, have been married for over a decade to my husband, 36 male, and we have a child together. I'm currently pursuing my second PhD while my husband is retired from the military and gets compensation for disability. He was attending college for undergrad but dropped out a few years ago and hasn't really done much of anything. He plays online games and whatnot to occupy his time. He's not very good with household chores and seems to almost do them incompletely, so I'll step in and finish it. Even making dinner turns into him throwing a passive-aggressive fit by slamming cabinets, pans, and dishes. He acts like having to vacuum or pick up after our child is the greatest imposition and will throw things around and be in a foul mood the whole time. It causes us to walk on eggshells around him. It feels like everything falls on my shoulders, especially with the switch to online schooling for our child. I've had to take on more and more and I feel like I'm at my wit's end. I've talked to him multiple times about helping out more and while he agrees verbally, he has no follow-through in his actions. His excuse is, well, just tell me what to do. I've written lists and made chore charts, he doesn't follow through. He tries to act like he's made changes in his behavior with his anger problems, but he falls back into old patterns all the time. He talks a good game in front of friends and family, but his actions don't match his words. Our child is starting to notice these things and constantly asks why I haven't divorced him. They have no respect for their dad because they see him not helping or doing anything. He's seen me go through therapy and the roller coaster that is being on medications to help with anxiety and depression, yet he does nothing to help himself. I've suggested he try therapy and he refuses. When I bring things to his attention, he gets moody and locks himself away with his computer and won't interact with us. Then he'll sheepishly come out hours later to apologize, but then we'll go through it again a few weeks later. I feel like we've stagnated and I want a partner who is more equal and is willing to learn and grow with me. I thought I had found it in my husband, but clearly not. When we have discussions about different topics, he can't seem to comprehend and hold a conversation anymore at the same level as the rest of my friends or family. He said he would support me in whatever way necessary while I pursue my PhD. Besides providing monetary support, compensation he gets for existing, he doesn't do anything that is day-to-day support. Do I trash him or drag him to therapy and try to make this work? TLDR. Husband dropped out of college and isn't helping with household tasks while I'm in school and online schooling our child. Feels like we've grown apart. Do I yeet him? Yes, it's 100% possible to outgrow your spouse. It's fine to admit you were in love once. But sometimes you think you can grow with someone but in reality you grow and they don't. And that's okay. Having a partner who is your equal and challenges you and is a real partner in life. Not just a sort of guest in your life but someone you can build a shared life with. I got out of a relationship that wasn't right for me a year or so ago, and my friend just did the same. People everywhere are wising up to the fact that just because you once told someone you would stick by them whatever happens, you're entitled to change your mind as much as anyone else. May I ask what his disability is? Does the VA have him on meds for anxiety and/or depression? My S.O. is a disabled vet of Iraq and Afghanistan with a TBI. And the VA had him on crazy high doses of Prozac and Wellbutrin. He was so medicated he had no emotions or drive whatsoever. It's like they medicated him into a zombie. And if those medications weren't taken exactly on schedule? Erratic behavior. And if he missed a dose he'd get super short-tempered and angry. When they reduced the medications he started actively participating in life again. It's been amazing. Both for him personally and our family. You can absolutely outgrow someone. But because of my experience with my Marine I figured there was no harm in asking you and mentioning my experience. It's time to set some boundaries with him. He desperately needs therapy, and if he doesn't get it there is no future for you both. It took a similar situation from my partner when I was struggling with debilitating depression and anxiety to snap me out of it and actually go willingly to intensive therapy. 3 years later and I have my eating disorder, self-hatred, depression and anxiety under control. We got married 2 years ago and I most likely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my partner setting those boundaries. It's not your fault if your partner refuses to get help for his illness. It sounds like you are way past the point of gently nudging him towards getting help. Oh my God, if your child is asking why you haven't divorced yet, you need to divorce ASAP. Someone in their 30s should be capable of active problem solving, teamwork and basic accountability to their partner without locking themselves in their room or throwing a tantrum. I'm y'all's age, I've never met you, and I've also outgrown your husband. Women have collectively outgrown putting up with shit like this at our age. Join us, you're clearly too smart for this. It is absolutely possible to outgrow a manchild. You've tried and tried to resolve this so I would yeet away. Therapy isn't going to do any good if he doesn't want to change. I think your wants and desires for a partnership are completely understandable and justified. I also agree with a PP who says this is worth one more talk. I'm not sure if in your therapy you've ever done DBT, but I have found the sections on assertive communication really helpful to ensure you're getting your point across and asking for what you need. I'd spend some time reflecting on what would need to change for you to want to stay in the relationship and then clearly communicate those needs to him. From there he can decide if he's willing to make the necessary changes or go. I'm 35, and if I'd to spend the rest of my life with a man like this it would destroy my soul. I'm so sorry you are being treated with no respect. He cares about no one but himself. Growing heart. Completely unrelated, but why are you going for a second PhD? Am I in a toxic relationship? I, 26M, have been with my girlfriend, 22F, for roughly 2.5 years now. I love her with all of my heart, but lately we've had a lot of rough patches and we recently broke up. One of our biggest issues is trust. I broke it early on in the relationship and eventually it was our downfall in the end. I wasn't the best boyfriend and I understand that. I've accepted that fact and I want to move forward, and I live with that guilt every single day. I wanted to continue my relationship with my GF, and she said that she was uncomfortable with one of my friendships. The ultimatum was to end my relationship or end my friendship. Keep in mind, I've known this man longer than I've known my GF, and we survived 2 combat deployments together. He is my brother. We did some stupid things in the past, early in my relationship with my GF. But things have drastically changed since he lives across the country now, and the only time we communicate is through gaming and phone calls. Regardless of the matter, I told him what the situation was, and he understood and wished me the best in my relationship and that he would always be there for me. Bless his soul for being such a fucking great friend. Recently, after me and my girlfriend got back together, she said that she was uncomfortable with me having Snapchat, and that I should delete it to make her comfortable. I don't want to, not because I'm doing anything to jeopardize our relationship, but because that is one of the platforms I use to communicate with my friends. I've had it since high school and grew up with it. Her reasoning is that one of her previous friends used it to talk to other women while he was in a relationship, and she's afraid that I'll do the same. I've tried to offer her compromises and defend my reasoning for keeping Snapchat, but she's again offered an ultimatum. I've consulted my friends and family and they keep telling me that I'm in a toxic relationship, but I want the internet to tell me if they're right or wrong. If you have to ask if you're in a toxic relationship because you have an inkling you might be in a toxic relationship, you're in a toxic relationship. I get where there might be insecurity on your GF's part because there's no evidence of conversations. But I think your concern about it being your means of connection with people you would otherwise have no ability to contact is legit image. If she's concerned about Snapchat, then she seems like she would be the one to read through your texts. That's not because you have something to hide, but the ability to have private conversations with friends cannot be underestimated. Since I don't know the whole story about choosing your best mate or your girlfriend, I can't give an answer for that. But deleting of an app because of one her friends used it in a really shitty manner is questionable. It feels like she is enforcing rules upon you, which is toxic. I see that you have tried to talk to her about your reasoning for not deleting the app, and I don't understand why she can't let you have it. Yes, I know you broke her faith early on, but either you need to convince her that you've changed, and I hope you have, or you might need to end it. A relationship is heavily built on trust and faith, so either try to make the foundation strong again, otherwise it'll crumble regardless. This is my 2 piece on the matter. It's true though, because you have done nothing to earn her distrust, and if she is going to the length of trying to control how you chat with your friends, then that is defined as a toxic relationship. As long as you are being honest, you should stand up for yourself and what you think, and if she is trying to negate what you are saying, then it's probably time for the relationship to end. Even though separating you from your friends and depriving you of social media are toxic signs, I think you and GF's main problem is that your relationship is hardly recoverable. Your intentions are good when you say you want to make up for the past and be with her, but you have to consider she can't handle this and she can't overcome her insecurities, even if you meet her requests. It's not right or wrong, it's just the way she feels, and she has some rights to feel this way. You have to consider if you really want to spend the next months, years constantly reminded of your guilt, trying to make up to her. Or maybe it's better to let her go so both of you can start over in a cleaner way. Best of luck. So you need to know, once trust is broken, it's broke. It can be fixed or rebuilt. It's shattered and will never be back the same. Second, let her go. Why are you still pursuing this? Do you really want to live with having to prove yourself? It's very draining and in the end won't work out for either of you. Stop with her, let her go, let her heal, and you need to go heal yourself as well. For you not to see this as a toxic relationship and need other to tell you means you need a lot of healing. Please, no more relationships until you heal all the way. You keep mentioning she has reasons to not trust you, but you have yet to elaborate on what those are. Gonna be honest, I rolled my eyes and thought, military man, as soon as you mentioned your combat buddy and how wonderful he is. A few of your past events you describe does make you sound really bad. You should not be shocked that she distrusts you. Unfortunately, a relationship sometimes can't overcome a loss of trust. It festers in everything that happens, and it might just not be something you can salvage. If she's not willing to budge, the choices are rather easy. Either do what she wants, or break up. I don't really see a viable third option if she doesn't change her mind. I would not consider sneaking behind her back and doing it anyway while agreeing on the surface. That's just going back to being a dishonest, untrustworthy person again. You absolutely are in a toxic relationship, and you are the toxic one. If anyone missed it, his girlfriend doesn't trust him because he kept going knowing the condom came off, and he also became buddies with her ex-best friend behind her back and hid it from her. Husband forcing to have a baby. Well, 33 years old female here. My husband and I are married for 1 year now. We are an international couple living in Korea. I suffered a lot because of cultural differences and had culture shock here. My in-laws were too controlling and wanted us around, spending time with them all the time. My husband is working with his father, which makes everything worse. Father-in-law shouted at me several times. And when I stood up for myself, I was the rude daughter-in-law. They are emotionally abusive people. All the time blamed me and forced me, saying that, "This is Korea. We have a culture of family. You should have known this before you got married. You have to follow our culture." And so on. My mother-in-law's words. Anyway, in short, I had a very hard time here and still have, and my husband kept asking me to have a baby from the beginning. I could convince him for 1 year, but now 1 year is over. He stopped protection, and even though I tried to talk to him and explain that I am still not ready for a baby and suffering a lot, he ignores me and does what he decides, telling me that I cannot decide by myself, that I am selfish, that he wants to be a father. I am so stressed, and because of my in-laws' pressure I am depressed. My in-laws kinda stopped behaving like they did before because I established boundaries. I see them once a week and have dinner in a restaurant, but I can feel that they are still pussy about a lot of things, especially baby, which affects my husband. I feel like my husband is pushing me because of his parents. I love my husband, but I cannot have a healthy conversation about my problems with him. My anxiety grows bigger, especially when I see my in-laws. And the idea of having a baby makes me more anxious. I don't know how to talk to my husband so that he understands me and not ignore what I say. I think it's time you leave the country. He is controlling you. I would get all important stuff, get some money, and leave the country. I hope you're on a form of birth control that is long-term, like an IUD or the arm implant or depot shots. If you're not, get on one of those immediately. I don't know why you're staying in this marriage, frankly. Your husband has no respect for you, neither does his family. You're not going to be able to convince him to change. This has become a marriage you must consider leaving. I lived in Korea and married a Korean man there. I am white American, 35F. We are now divorced, but I know how the culture can be. It can be very hard on daughter-in-laws. But, thankfully, you can get birth control pills at any pharmacy without a prescription. Please go get some so you have some kind of protection. If you want to DM me and talk more, my DMs are open anytime. Don't have a baby under duress, leave your husband, and leave South Korea. This is reproductive coercion and is a form of domestic abuse. First things first. Just because he stopped using contraceptives does not mean you have to stop using contraceptives. If necessary, get something you can take secretly, or consider something like a dermal implant or jab that'll work for an extended period of time. Beyond that, you need to think carefully about whether this is a relationship you want to be in long term. It sounds like your husband is enthralled to his family, and isn't going to be able to break free of their wants. Is that how you want to live your life, constantly being told what to do by his family? You haven't said where you're from originally, but if you have family back home, is there anything to stop you just packing up and going home? I have to agree with everyone else here. You need to get away quickly. Doesn't sound like a safe or happy life, especially not one for a baby. A Middle Eastern here. Even by our standards, Korean families in Korea are controlling, and keep in mind my mill was surprised when after marriage we didn't want to have every meal in their house. They thought we will be at their house for every meal and our house will be for sleep only. You are in a bad situation because by your standard they are abusive. By their standard you have no respect for the family unit. I have a friend who is in a similar situation like you. Her husband is finally getting tired of his parents and is saying no occasionally. But your husband still works for his dad, so there is that too. Get away if you can. Plan a visit and go to your family because after getting pregnant you can't. Cover story, and never go back. He moved you there to isolate you and wear you down over time and normalize abuse.